Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Succession Season 2, Episode 3. Alright, so first off, I just want to apologize for being a couple days late with this one. I believe this is Thursday this will go up. So it is a couple days later than what I typically want to get these out. So going forward, I do want to get those out a little bit earlier. Usually a Monday or Tuesday type of deal, with this one premiering on Sunday. But anyways, I thought this episode was a really great one once again. So this is 3 for 3 now for this season of Succession, which I think, maybe it's a little bit too early to say, and I see a lot of people already saying it out there, that this may end up being one of the best shows of 2019. For some people, it was the best of last year. To me, personally, it was definitely one of the best of last year for sure. And this season, 3 episodes in, it might just be the best show, or one of the best for me, again this year. But anyways, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode. What did you think of it, and what do you think of some of the, we got some major plot developments, in this episode for some characters in specific, mainly Connor and Shiv, maybe Kendall and Roman. So I'd just like to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Love to discuss the episode and kind of some of your predictions maybe, or theories as to what we might see going forward later in the season and stuff. So really would like to talk to you guys and love if you would share your thoughts on it. So anyways, if you enjoy the review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. But without any further ado, let's get into a little bit of a recap for the episode, going over some of the major points in this episode and some of the major points for some of these characters in this one. I thought this was a really great episode at kind of catching us up with some of these characters that we haven't seen for, some of these characters we haven't seen since season 1, but some of these characters we just haven't spent as much time on, and I felt like this episode gave them a little bit more light, in terms of kind of the development that they gave them in this one. And then of course gets my rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts and predictions, like I said off the top, as to what we might see going forward. But anyways, let's get into it. So we start this one off with Logan proposing, basically an idea, right? His idea that they've already tried in the past, which is to buy up Pierce, which is a $20 billion rival media company that they've, like I said, tried to buy up before and did not succeed, right? I believe they kind of said that Pierce pretty much just said no, right, and turned them completely down, and they were like a little bit embarrassed over this. So the group, right, the inner circle, if you will, and I think that's what Logan kind of refers to it as in the episode, has its doubts, right? And it's like, given what happened last time with this, and given their current situation with Sandy and Stewie just like, right on their tails, ready to pounce at any, bad thing that they do, any even questionable move that they do, this one does surprise the inner circle a little bit, and also surprises us audience members too, because Logan usually is pretty calculated, thinks things through, like, he's miles ahead of a lot of other people, including his own children, right? But in this one, it does seem like it's kind of maybe a convoluted idea here that may not pay off for them, but he's willing to take the leap. So if this works out, they will simply be too big for Stewie and Sandy to take over, and the company would definitely improve its public image, and this is kind of what Logan echoes to the group to kind of encourage it a little bit, right? However, as Kendall states, if it goes bad, it could lead them into a death spiral. I love that term, and it's true, right? It's true. If this goes bad, the optics would look absolutely terrible, that they couldn't buy up this rival media company. They're going to be embarrassed again, and that is exactly when Sandy and Stewie are looking to pounce. Like I said, they're just waiting for this opening, right? And then boom, they're going to take it. So anyways, I love this though from Kendall. So he says it could leave them in a death spiral, and then like a few minutes after that, he's like, but I love the idea, right? Like, this is an awesome idea. I love it. And he tells Logan, that he really loves it and all that stuff. So, him and everybody else in the room too. Like, everybody is saying, oh yeah, like, I love this idea. Really great idea, right? They kind of accept this idea in fear of Logan, even though they know it's not the best idea. And of course, this is followed through in the rest of the episode when they elect Tom to be their spokesperson. So Logan is then informed that in order to broker the deal, he may have to bring Frank back from season 1 to communicate with Pierce on the other side, since people at the company liked Frank before, and he might be their in, actually, in order to broker this deal, which is kind of funny, right? Because of the way that Frank went out in season 1. I love the tie-in, though, bringing Frank, this character, back from season 1. Obviously, I'm not going to say, oh, like he was one of the best characters season 1. I mean, he was in, I think, like 2 or 3 episodes. But I do think it's just nice to always tie these things in and bring this character back. I felt like the way he went out in season 1 was a little bit, definitely unceremoniously, right? He went out, and wasn't a good exit. And so I just thought this was kind of also a little bit of a comedic kind of beat as well, if you will, to bring him back, just in the way that Logan kind of interacts with him now being part of the group again. So anyways, this leaves Kendall then all in with Logan, and he's, just in this episode, you see, he is just like right at his side the entire time through all of this, doing whatever Logan says. So he is all in with Logan. Roman then is also all in, but with a little bit of a twist. He wants to do it alone and take down Kendall. So he wants to, somehow be able to broker this deal with Pierce, and then kind of shove it in Kendall's face and put him down. So that rivalry, it definitely heats up later in the episode as well. But just off the bat here, you can see Roman still trying to burn Kendall here. And then we see Shiv, who's kind of on the sidelines of this episode, actually, but she is totally against the move. She even tells Logan that on the phone, I believe. And after she's told to stay home from the corporate getaway or the retreat, right, that they go on to Hungary, she asks Tom, who is going on the trip, to try and talk him out of it. And of course, she dangles this future CEO job in front of Tom in order to get him to do it. And the relationship between Shiv and Tom deteriorates even more in this episode, especially towards the end of the episode, which again is like, you feel so bad for Tom in this episode again. And even like last episode, it was just so gloomy for him. So, Tom is definitely probably the one you feel the most sorry for, maybe Greg as well. But both of them are definitely not perfect guys either, right? And that's the whole joy of this show. So anyways, that's kind of where we set up at the very beginning here. Kendall's all in, Roman all in, but wants to burn Kendall, and Shiv is totally against it and sends Tom as her soldier. I think she calls him a soldier later on, in order to talk Logan out of it. So, meanwhile, on the plane ride to Hungary for the corporate retreat, Logan is formed. This was the funniest kind of storyline. I kind of forgot what this was again, but Logan is informed that someone from his inner circle has spoken to a lady writing a biography about him, and he just erupts at this point. Like on the plane, he just erupts and begins getting really, really angry. And the girl then basically gets one of the guys to search out who it was who talked, right? Gets Sam, I think it's the what does he call him again? I think it's like the rat snatcher or the rat catcher or something. Anyways, that's the name that Tom gives him. Anyways, so it's the Sam guy, right? And so he's going to look into the personal, the private and business emails of everybody in the inner circle and try to figure out who it was. And the funniest thing is we start off this episode with the scene of Greg talking to this lady. So, of course, we know it was Greg already at this point. And it wasn't just, a meeting. It was a meeting to decide if there was going to be a meeting. So anyways, that was just a really, really funny thing that went through this episode that actually ended up being kind of a dramatic moment at the very end between Tom and Greg, which again, like, that's how good this show is. Something that starts out like this, that's just hilarious with Greg at the very beginning, ends up being an actual meaningful kind of dramatic moment that gives these characters some more development towards the end of the episode. And that's just like, it's so brilliant about this show. But anyways, and so Greg really screwed up this time, right? He meets with this woman. He really only tells her like a couple words, right? He describes Logan as paranoid, evil, violent, and all this stuff, right? And that's really all she gets from him, right? He doesn't go in depth or anything, but he is just like shitting himself, right? Because he's like, oh my God, right? Logan might find out that I was the one who talked to her and all this stuff. By the way, a hilarious exchange between Kendall and Greg there on the plane, where Greg's asking what's going on, and Kendall's like, well, once Logan finds him, I mean, he's going to chop him up into pieces and throw him in the river, or something like that. And just Nicholas Braun's face, just his facial reactions in some of these scenes are just priceless. But anyways, so then we see later as the group goes out into the field to do the boar hunt, right? Which we see a little bit later on. Greg then confides in Tom, who advises him never to tell Logan. He says, Logan's going to kill you if you tell him. And he says never to trust anyone ever, including him, right? He says, you just gave me like a good piece of capital right there, that I could use against you and tell Logan, and all this stuff. So just a hilarious scene, as always, between the two of them. I don't know if it's the best scene between the two of them in the series. I would put the death pit scene where Tom reveals the cruise thing, where Greg, back from season 1, Greg's like, well, I don't want to go to the death pit, and then Tom just tells him all the information, and just reels him right into the death pit, essentially. Anyways, so that scene I think would be a little bit better, but this one was just amazing as well. The duo between the two of them is enough to watch the show, by itself. But anyways, so yeah, Greg confides in Tom, and then this comes back later on as well. And this also is interesting too, because Greg says, I can trust you, right, Tom? Right? And he's like, a little, maybe, right? So he's honest with him. But yeah, it is a really great dynamic between the two of them here. So then we see Connor, and I really liked the focus on him this episode and where they're taking his story. I hope that they don't turn away from this, because I really hope this is an ongoing story in the rest of the season, and this actually plays into the main plot with the Roy family, but we'll have to see. Anyways, so Connor puts together his presidential campaign video, hopefully a jump start to that campaign, right? So he talks about paying no taxes as part of his platform, how he's willing to go to jail, right? Because he doesn't want to pay tax. He says he's going to start off with a flat tax for everybody, a flat tax rate, and then eventually get it to a zero tax rate, so nobody pays any taxes. And just like in the video, it's just like super vulgar too. And I love it because it's so, in the video, he's like, I'm a rancher. I'm just like you. And meanwhile, he's living in this new penthouse of this massive apartment building. And he's acting like a rancher. And he's got the vest on and the checkered shirt, right? And all that stuff. So just a hilarious kind of thing here. But it's also kind of realistic. Like, some of these guys that make these like types of videos and stuff, that probably is exactly what they're doing, right? Like in that thing, they're kind of showing you what they want you to see and that stuff. But anyways, I thought this was just hilarious. So the whole thing though is really just a headache for Logan. I mean, that's really all it is. It's not a really big problem, but it's just such a headache at this point because of all the other stuff going on that's much bigger and much more important. And this is just on the side, just a, just an annoyance, I guess, right? So they really just don't need this right now due to the attempt at buying up Pierce. And again, Stewie and Sandy waiting on something like this that they can kind of edge in and kind of get into Logan. So it's pretty damn funny, though, like I said. I love how they are following up this storyline that seemed just like a comedic shtick at the end of last season. It honestly did. The whole thing about Connor telling them, oh, I'm going to run for president. I want to run for president, right? And all that stuff. And I think a lot of us, including me, we're like, okay, like this is kind of a hilarious thing, make Connor run for president. But I didn't think they would actually follow through with this plot and actually go forward with it. And I'm just so pleasantly surprised that they are. So really looking forward to that. So then we see Shiv is sent to look after him by Logan and make sure he doesn't publish the video, right? Logan doesn't want that to get out. And again, just a headache for him right now. So it seems like she's more of a babysitter than a CEO in training in this episode. And that's really how Logan treats her until the very end of this one. So once she gets there, she really is in the role of a babysitter. She tries breaking through to Connor's girlfriend as well. I'm forgetting her name right now, but Connor's girlfriend, after Connor refuses to put the video and his bid for president aside. In fact, he actually offers Shiv the job to manage his campaign. That's how serious he is about this. And then, Shiv also sees that he's hired two serious guys who've been campaign, I guess, managers or some sort of, organizers on some other serious campaigns. And so this kind of gives Shiv and us, the audience, an impression that, like, okay, he's actually serious about this. Like, it's kind of hilarious, but he actually is serious about this, and he really does want to run for president. And that's why she tries breaking through to the girlfriend to kind of get her to talk to him a little bit, which I don't think is going to work. I mean, they meet at this bar. Shiv ends up meeting the guy, and she ends up sleeping with that guy that she meets at the bar as well. But anyway, so I just, I didn't think that Shiv actually got through to her at all. She says, we both support each other's dreams. Mine's Broadway and his is the White House. And so I thought that was pretty funny too. But yeah, I don't see that going away anytime soon. All right, so then after the boar hunt finishes up, when everyone gets back to the mansion there, and I like this part too, the way this played out as we see kind of the picture, right? They kind of line up for the picture with all the boars lined up in front of them on the ground, and they line up for that picture of of the hunt pretty much. And I like the way that they show the actual hunting scene at the very beginning, where they show the people. We show the guys kind of in the field, getting ready to getting ready for the hunt, right? Getting ready for the boars to come in. And then we actually see the scene where the boars come in. So I really like the way that they did they kind of went through with that scene. I think a lot of other shows would just skip over that, right? They go from, the guys walking in the field all of a sudden to the mansion of them taking the picture. But this kind of gives some further context to it. And I like the way they kind of let these scenes breathe. They let them play out a little bit in the show. Really awesome stuff. And I thought it was also a little bit funny, right? To see Tom and Greg on either side of the, I guess, what would you call it? I guess the stanchions, on either side, waiting for the boards to come. That was pretty awesome, too. So then we see, so they're done taking the picture at the mansion, and right after, Jerry and Carl approach Tom to ask him to be their spokesman, right? To be their spokesperson in order to raise their doubts with the Pierce deal to Logan during the dinner later that night. And it's also as well because Jerry is told by Shiv that Shiv has kind of ordered him or told him to do essentially that, right? Is to tell Logan that it's a bad idea and basically voice her concerns because she doesn't really have a voice here to tell Logan herself, right? And Logan kind of orders her to be the babysitter for Connor, as we see. So anyways, just hilarious part here. And just such perfect writing here, really, to have Tom be the spokesperson and having him, having to basically be responsible to voice these concerns and these doubts when he's already sucking up and trying to do whatever Logan wants. So it's just a hilarious moment here. So, however, then before dinner starts, Logan is told by his guy that the Pierce family now knows his intentions and that somebody has leaked information about their approach. And right away, he says, well, we have a rat, right? So this causes Logan to go completely apeshit, right? Like he just loses it, and he becomes really paranoid then at the dinner later that night. I believe this is like literally just minutes before he walks into the dinner room there where they're sitting down to eat. And he uses this as a way then to detect who the rat is. And of course, we have to remember here as well that he also was just told about the biography lady, about someone who just talked to her, right? And so we know now kind of there's two big things here, right? Like this has just been leaked to Pierce now, and this biography lady is doing this, someone's talking to her. This must be the same person, right? That's trying to get back at me and trying to do something in my inner circle, right? And so the way this plays out, it really makes for one of the best scenes of the series. I guess it's more of a sequence, right? Because there's multiple scenes kind of playing out here. It's quite a long one. But anyways, just an amazing scene coming up. But first, it's just so funny here as well because Logan, so intense, he's now paranoid at this, trying to figure out who this rat is. And meanwhile, Tom is now faced with trying to pick the right time to raise the group's doubts about the deal. And it's just so funny the way this plays out. And I do want to highlight one of the better moments of this scene that plays out here at the very beginning. So it's when Tom is trying to like pick his spot a little bit. And I think this is right after Logan kind of gives the Ray guy shit about him, wanting to go to the bathroom, right? And so he's kind of being mean to this Ray guy, asking if he's the rat and all this stuff. And so Tom is like, is this the time? Is this time? And then Carl kind of leads over to him, and he's sitting right beside him, which is great. So Carl leads over to him, and he's like, now, Tom, like, stand up and do it now. Like, like, this is your time, do it. And Tom just kind of, like, looks over at him and he's like, fuck off. Like, like, trying to get him off, trying to keep him quiet so that Logan doesn't hear him. It's probably the worst time that he could have gone up. So anyways, just such a funny little moment between the two of these guys. Two great actors, by the way, but Matthew Macfadyen here, just his timing and his delivery is everything. Just an awesome moment here, and it's just great. Like, Tom's being pressured to speak out about the doubts, and he's like, fuck off, right? So anyways, and I will say too, I did notice in the very next, like, frame almost, or the very next take after this little moment, I think I could see, I watched it back, like, I think, like, 3 times, and I think you could see Matthew Macfadyen kind of smiling in the background here, looking at the actor who's playing Carl, obviously, because he's not in it, but he's just kind of in the background of Logan talking, and just, I think it really was Matthew Macfadyen, like, losing it, actually laughing at that, because it's such a hilarious moment. But anyways, I thought that was just a really, kind of little cool thing that I wanted to touch on. But anyways, so because of this paranoia and a little bit of the drinking, right? So Logan's already drank quite a bit at this point. A lot of, basically everybody has in the room. So first he accuses Frank, who just came back, of course, as we know, calls him all types of names and says, that he's the rat and all this stuff. And then he starts walking around the table asking people whether they are with him or if they know who the rat is by asking their opinion on the Pierce deal. And so, basically, the rules of the game, he says it's the game of boar on the floor, right? And so the rules is essentially, or at least this is the way we see it play out, is if they are honest about their opinions, they get to sit down, right? But if they bullshit them, if they lie, they stand up and go stand in the corner. And so we see Jerry is honest. She's like, yeah, I have my doubts. I don't really like the idea. And so Logan lets her sit. But then we see Carl and Tom both just completely bullshit him. Just, of course, Tom does, right? He sucks up to him. And this is just an awesome scene here, where he basically sends Carl and Tom both stand in the corner, right? I love how Tom is, he says, well, there's a lot of different elements, but I really love the eye. Like, I mostly love it, and all this stuff, trying to bullshit him. And of course, he's sent to the corner. And then Logan sends Greg there as well, even though he is honest. And Greg said, but that's not the rules, and all. So just a hilarious moment here. And Nicholas Braun is just, like, priceless. His facial reactions and all that stuff is just amazing in this. So you can just feel the tension in this scene. You really can, around the table of these of all the people just kind of shitting their pants, like, just nervous, waiting on Logan to call them up next and ask what their opinion is. So I thought that was amazing kind of tension that they brewed in this one. So again, it's a hilarious scene, right? There's a lot of really funny moments in this, but it's also really serious and really kind of dramatic. And so just a really great, kind of combination there, balance, if you will. And I thought this was an amazing acted scene by Brian Cox, by the way, especially this first part of it. Just an insane. I think Logan in season 1 wasn't kind of as prominent as this. He was kind of sick. He was, he wasn't well, right? And so now he's kind of back to being the patriarch of this family, and really kind of asserting his power over everybody, right? Like, literally everybody in the company, and also his kids, right? And I just think Brian Cox, with giving this a little bit of a bigger role, is doing an amazing job, like, just amazing. So anyways, I just want to give him credit for sure. He killed it in this episode, but especially in this scene. So then we end with Carl, Tom, and Greg being the boars on the floor, as Logan calls them, and they end up having to fight for a sausage to eat. Basically, in this contest of the last person to eat the sausage is the mole, is the rat. And so, Logan tells them to oink like pigs. So they're crawling around the floor, oinking like pigs and all this stuff. And it's so perfect, right? Because Carl, Tom, mainly Tom and Greg, they will oink, right? Like, Logan asked them to oink, they're oinking, right? Carl was a bit of a surprise to see him oink, but just added to the hilariousness of this scene. But anyways, and so it all just turns out to be a joke played by Logan to make them look stupid, and it really does. It's a really humiliating moment for all three of them, and it really is kind of, again, it's hilarious, but it's also kind of dark. Like, you feel bad for these three guys that are being humiliated this much, but it really is all just a joke. Like, Logan doesn't really believe that any of them are the moles. He just wants to make them look stupid, and he's also probably quite drunk at this point as well, so we kind of have to remember that and take that into account as well, but still just a very mean thing to do to these three, but it is, right? Like, these three are kind of the most slimy guys, the most kind of bullshit guys. I think Logan refers to snakes later in the scene, right? And they really are. Like, these three guys are snakes, and so anyways, that's the way it plays out. And so then we see, as they're doing this whole sausage contest and all this stuff, Roman tries recording them, right? And Kendall sees this as an opportunity, so he takes his phone to check out what he's been hiding in order to expose it to Logan. And as we see Logan walks back in the room, Kendall finds Roman's call to Naomi Pierce from earlier and tells him that it was Roman who sabotaged the deal. Right? And he just completely exposes Roman here. And so this was from the earlier scene where Kendall and Roman were talking to each other in the field, and Roman gets that phone call and is kind of acting a little bit suspect about it, right? He's like, oh, it's a private phone call. I can't tell you, and all this stuff, right? And it's being Naomi Pierce. But of course, as we know earlier in the episode, Roman is talking to his girlfriend there and telling her, like, I want to do that. I want to do it myself. So I'm going to contact Naomi Pierce and try to broker this deal and really impress my father. But of course, the way the optics look, especially considering what this scene has just played out, and Logan trying to deduce who the mole is, this doesn't look good for Roman, right? But Logan realizes he didn't intentionally do it, right? And he just calls him a flat-out moron for calling her. He doesn't even get mad at him. Like, he's not even, oh, you were the rat and all this stuff. He just calls him a moron, right? And that's just, like, how he sees it. And again, he's drunk, but I think this is really how Logan sees Roman. And it's true, though. I mean, it was a pretty moronic move by Roman to call Naomi Pierce about it. And, like, how does he not think that that might inform them of their position and all? Like, just kind of not a smart thing to do, right? So he then says, this is, like, one of the best lines of the episode. Really great. And so calls Roman a moron. He says he's surrounded by snakes and fucking morons and a bunch of silk stocking fucks. So just a hilarious line here by Logan. And, right? So the morons is Roman pretty much, and a couple of the others. Snakes, probably, some of them in there, right? Carl may be a snake, Tom, Greg, but I would more loop Tom and Greg into the silk stocking fucks, kind of the sucking up bullshitting guys in there. And I mean, Logan's not really that wrong. Let's be honest. I mean, everyone in that room definitely has ulterior motives, and fits into these groups, I think. Maybe except Jerry. I think she's kind of the loyal one out of this. But anyways, so he questions then one last time, who backs me on Pierce, right? He wants to know once and for all who is actually with him. And finally, Kendall responds after no one says anything. None of them do, Dad. They're all against it. And essentially exposes everybody who's lying to him. Says Ray doesn't agree with them. Jerry's playing both sides. Carl doesn't agree. And all this stuff, right? And it's just something that obvious, like we could see, right? That they don't agree with it. And he sees that as well. So Logan accepts and trusts the statement from Kendall. And it actually, like, this was an odd sequence where it seems like Kendall's really the only one he respects and trusts at this point. And I'm thinking maybe Volter was enough for Logan to know where Kendall now stands, even though he tried to, backstab him at the end of last season completely. So a really interesting thing here, but Kendall is really his most trusted guy at this point and in this scene where he's actually honest with everybody. And I think Kendall is truly the only one who actually likes the deal and wants to do it, whether that is, actually his own opinion or just Logan making that decision for him. Either way, I think he actually does really agree with the deal and want to do it. And so he's honest. And so then Logan says, tells everybody that they're going after the deal, whether they like it or not, and that he will win. So then he walks out of the room as Kendall follows him. And I thought this was, again, like, Kendall just follows right after, right? It's kind of like that, that pet dog, right? Just following walking right behind him. And that just really was a great symbolization as well there, because again, Kendall's kind of his only trusted guy, and Kendall's just doing anything Logan wants at this point. And so he just kind of follows behind him, and nobody else follows him, right? Nobody else goes behind him as well. So what a dinner, right? Like, what a dinner scene that played out here. And of course, everybody is a little drunk, probably a lot drunk, right? Including Logan at this point. And that's where we see next morning at breakfast. We kind of transition here, and Logan apologizes to Frank to start things off. He says, I apologize if things got a little fruity the night before. So just hilarious here. Yeah, just a little bit, right? The names that you called Frank and all that stuff, yeah. Little bit fruity, maybe, that you might call it that. Anyways, so we see Logan also offer Frank his job back, or at least he tells Jerry that he has. So that's going to be an interesting one, and we'll have to see if Frank accepts that. I love the scene between him and Jerry too, and they had some great scenes in season 1 too, so it's great to see both of them back. But he tells Jerry, Jerry's like, why are you taking this job? Like, why are you even considering it? And he's like, I don't know. I don't even know, right? So anyways, he then gets the news, Logan gets the news from the girl that Sam, the rat catcher, that's what it was, the rat catcher, that's what Tom calls him. So the rat catcher found out it was Mo, who I don't even know who Mo is. I'm not sure if we're supposed to or not. But anyway, so she says it was Mo who talked to the biography lady, and that Mo also passed away the night before. Like, this guy, or I'm guessing it's a guy. Anyway, so this Mo guy died, like, the night before, after Sam, the rat catcher, just found out that he was the one who talked to the biography lady, and this just ends up being, like, such an ironic scene here. I love this, how Logan says, oh, I send my condolences. But the irony here is just too much. Like, it's just too much, man. It like, truly, it's a somber scene. Logan tries to take things seriously. But the irony here is just too much. It's just such good timing here, and it makes just for a really funny thing that plays out. And again, just such an ironic thing that the guy who was talking to the biography lady has now died, right? And so basically anything he told her, it basically dies with him, right? So, like, they don't really have a rat problem anymore. Anyways, so I thought that was just a really nice touch there as well. And it also kind of makes it even more funny, the whole thing that Greg was paranoid the whole episode about it, and it ends up not even being him. And then the guy who it was died. So Greg's, like, totally in the clear now. So anyways, Logan then requests to see what Sam had on Mo and what he was saying to the lady about the biography. And all that stuff as well. So we'll have to see what happens with that, because, like I just said, Greg's kind of completely off the hook now, but I guess there's a chance that he might still be involved, but we'll have to see anyways. So we'll see if that even plays out. I'm not sure if we'll ever come back to this plotline again. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't. But anyways, I thought it was just still intriguing because Greg is safe for now, as I said. I think he's pretty much in the clear now. But we see him later then thank Tom for not exposing him the night before, when he could have easily done it. I mean, Tom really could have easily exposed him to get out of the boar on the floor game. Like, he would have totally been removed by that if he had told Logan that Greg was the one speaking to the biography lady. And he would have been cleared all that humiliation and all that stuff that played out. But he didn't. Like, he didn't expose Greg. He didn't tell his secret. And so there's a really interesting dynamic here between these two. I think this is also, they're covering Tom a lot in this season so far in the first 3 episodes, giving him a lot of time and a lot of development. And I think this is really a turning point for Tom, because I think he's really changing. And as a result of this change for Tom's character, he's actually starting to have some respect for Greg. And that's something that we really did not see, I would say, at all in season 1. Like, he just treated him really bad, and just, he would pin anything on Greg. And so for him not to expose Greg in this scene, I think also speaks back to the way that he's being treated by the family. And I think he kind of sees Greg as himself a little bit. I don't know, maybe I'm looking at that too deeply for someone like Tom. But anyways, that's just the way I saw it. I think it's definitely a change in Tom's kind of perspective on things and the way he usually acts, which again is really due to Matthew McFadden's acting. I think that was really great as well in this scene. He doesn't even say anything. He just kind of pats Greg on the hand. So it's a really great scene. Anyways, then on the plane ride back home, Frank tells Logan the Pierce CEO has heard his approach and that she is willing to help them. We see Logan's very pleased by this. Kendall says, "Great work, Frank," right? And again, the way this scene is even positioned, like Kendall and Logan sitting together, facing each other, and then Frank kind of in the row behind, everyone else is behind them. So it really is like Logan and Kendall against the world at this point. And again, it's just such a really it's such a transition from what we saw at the very, even in episode 9 of season 1. Between Logan and Kendall in this relationship, and I think they've done a really great job in Kendall redeeming himself to this point, and then again, I think it's Logan and Kendall against the world at this point, and going forward, like, I think that's what it is. So we'll have to see how that goes. So to end off here, Shiv watches as Connor's video has now been published. So we see that at the very end of it, or at least it's been leaked somehow. And so Connor's bid for the president is officially out, which probably won't be to Logan's. Logan probably wouldn't be happy with that, right? So we'll have to see how that plays out. Anyways, Logan then calls her at the end and tells her, set a date, it's time to bring you in. And that's where we end off this episode. So we see Shiv is very excited in this scene, but I gotta say, in what capacity and for how long does Logan actually intend to bring her in, right? I mean, yeah, it's something big to say it's time to bring you in, but in what capacity and for how long, right? And I still don't know about this, considering especially how he was, and how condescending he acted towards her until right in this scene at the end of the episode. The entire episode, right? He sends her as like a babysitter to Connor, tells her to stay home from the retreat and all this stuff to basically put her out on the bench, right? Benches her pretty much in this episode. And then at the very end to say, it's time to bring you in and try to, and try to get to her a little bit. Calling her Pinky even in this scene, and that's a big thing too. Like when Logan wants something from Shiv, that he uses that. And so anyways, I just don't know about this. Even this scene of Logan kind of making it official, if you will, and saying, we're bringing you in, like it's time, I still don't think that he is being at least honest with her, but I don't think he has any intention of making her that CEO. But anyways, that's where we end off this episode. Alright, so in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to give this one a 4.7 out of 5. I thought this was a step down from the first 2 episodes, but still a really great one. My only main problem with this one that maybe takes it down from the other 2 episodes was it basically ended where it began. And, I think to have episodes like this in a TV show, you obviously need episodes like this where the plot doesn't necessarily move a lot forward, right? You kind of take 1 step forward and 2 steps back, right? And that's the type of episode it felt like. It seemed like an actual retreat, right? Where it was kind of a break from the main the main plot to kind of dive into some of these characters and kind of the smaller issues and kind of underlying things in the background that have been going on. Like this whole rat idea, the whole Pierce thing. And so they introduce us to some new plots, Connor running for president, right? And so they kind of use this episode to tackle some of the smaller plots, and kind of show Logan's paranoia as well, a lot of his paranoia in this episode, and kind of play with that concept. So again, the main plot of the whole Sandy and Stewie thing has kind of been put on hold in this episode. They go to Hungary, they go hunting. There is, quite a few scenes in here where it's just kind of, throwaway scenes, if you will, right? But still enjoyable. I'm not saying that they're bad scenes. I'm just saying, basically towards the main plot, they don't really have much use, I guess, right? But still really enjoyable scenes. So anyway, that's just the way I thought of this episode. It was a really great one, but it didn't really further our main plot any further than we were. Whereas I felt like episode 1 and 2 both did a really great job at that, and really kind of set out to do that specifically. So Kendall and Roman rivalry not going away anytime soon. I love the way that Kendall completely backstabs Roman in this episode, completely backstabs him. And then we see Roman. I really love that scene, by the way, with Roman and Jerry towards the end. I didn't talk about that one, but that was also a really great one. And we see, like, Roman is such an asshole, but again, then we get a scene like that where you actually do kind of feel bad for the guy, where he's just trying to do his best. He's trying to get that approval from his dad, and, his dad calls him a moron and just humiliates him again. And so, again, that rivalry between the two brothers is something that we have to watch going forward. And we also see Shiv cheats on Tom in this so-called open relationship, but it sounds like it's only a one-way open relationship with Shiv. So anyways, that was an interesting one too. And Tom coming home to Shiv at the very end. Again, just you kind of feel bad for Tom being in this relationship and even being in this family, especially after what he had to go through during that dinner scene as well. And I thought Connor running for president was awesome. And I think it gives his character a little bit more to do this season. And I'm really looking forward to this plot line. And I really hope they don't abandon it. I really hope they follow through with that one. Favorite character this one, I got to go with Logan Roy, played by Brian Cox. I talked about it before, but I think this was the best acted episode so far for Brian Cox of the series. This was insane. I really like what they're doing with the Logan character. Again, kind of giving him more to do, giving him more depth this season. And Brian Cox is doing a hell of a job so far. He's kind of played the patriarch. He played King Lear as well. That's one of his bigger roles that he's done. For him to play kind of the patriarch now of the Roy family, Logan Roy, he's just so great. And he was really great in season 1. But again, I just don't think he had the same range and same depth that he has now, because his character is actually, able to move around and be able to be that functioning boss of the company again. And he's doing an amazing job. So anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for my review of this episode. Again, love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. What do you think of it? And what are some of your thoughts going forward? Like I said, with some of these main plots, Connor running for president, Shiv and Tom, right? Shiv becoming CEO, Kendall and Roman, their relationship, Logan's paranoia, all that stuff. I'd love to hear what you guys think. But anyways, again, guys, thanks so much for watching this one, and we'll see you next week for Succession Season 2, Episode 4.